I thought she was designing a logo for my startup. Turns out, she was designing it for the competition. My life, my code, my ideas, everything became her betrayal. And the worst part? She believed in the project. She just didn't believe in me. I remember the night I pitched Hailey the first sketch of my AI-driven tutoring platform. We were on the couch of our tiny Boston apartment, half IKEA, half Craigslist, glowing with the neon light of my laptop screen. I talked so fast I had to stop for water, but she just listened, nodding in that gentle, steady way that made me feel as if the world outside her eyes didn't exist. Hailey was a freelance designer with 3 recurring clients, yet she treated my wireframes like the Smithsonian had called and asked for them. When she offered to handle branding pro bono until you're funded, I honestly believed I'd hit the co-founder jackpot. For weeks I coded through the night, wrapped in the white noise hum of her stylus gliding across the iPad. Occasionally, she'd turn the screen to show an early color study or a hand-lettered tagline. We'd debate fonts at 3 a.m. and fall asleep on opposing ends of the sectional, legs tangled like mismatched earbuds. It should have been paradise, but cracks appear in silence before they become sound. Around Thanksgiving, I noticed she closed her MacBook whenever I walked in from the garage office I'd converted out of the old laundry room. At first, I blamed seasonal affective gloom, convincing myself she was hiding Black Friday gift research. Then came the late-night client calls, taken from the stairwell, her voice hushed but strangely animated. She claimed they were Los Angeles time zone folks, yet I once caught the glow of FaceTime and the reflection of a man's silhouette in her glasses. She laughed in a register I hadn't heard since our first date at Fenway. I told myself not to be the jealous founder stereotype, paranoid, sleep-starved, allergic to boundaries, but my stomach twisted every time her AirPods snapped shut. The decisive blow arrived 6 days before Christmas. My GitHub notifications erupted like a fire alarm, multiple unauthorized polls, then a hard delete of the private repo. I sprinted upstairs, heart ricocheting. Hailey wasn't in the living room. Her keys were gone. A single sticky note on the fridge read, "Be back soon. Target run." I called my CTO, Caleb. He hadn't touched the code all day. By midnight, we had rolled back the repo, patched the breach, and filed incident reports. I kept refreshing TechCrunch out of morbid instinct, but nothing popped. Sleep finally claimed me on the edge of the mattress, still in jeans. 3 days later, while I was queuing for burnt coffee at the MIT Venture Cafe, my phone vibrated with 50 Slack pings. A stealth startup called Brainwave U had launched an eerily familiar AI tutor, same adaptive curriculum flow, same UX rhythm, even the Easter egg dark mode I'd whispered only to Hailey during a 2 a.m. pizza break. Their press kit featured a gorgeous geometric logo, a stylized neuron intersecting a graduation cap. Hailey's illustration style was carved into every line. I drove home in a fog so dense the Mass Pike exits blurred. Hailey was in the kitchen, apron-tied, simmering tomato soup like it was any ordinary Tuesday. I could barely swallow the air. My hands shook as I opened my laptop and projected the Brainwave U site onto the TV. She watched the screen brighten, spoon frozen mid-stir. No tears, no apology. Just that designer's tilt of the head as if appraising color contrast. "How long?" I whispered. She adjusted the burner, clicked it off. "Since October," she said, voice flat. "They hired me to revamp their brand. I thought you knew." I kept hinting. Hinting? The word tasted like rust. "You cloned my platform. I didn't touch your code." "Someone did, Hailey. They launched with features I pushed last week." She set the spoon down with surgical care. "Logan, he's their lead investor, wanted parity. I told him it was impossible without you shipping first. He said impossible is just expensive, so he found a way." Logan Davis, a name I'd seen once on a Boston Angel Network newsletter, 2 seed rounds, 1 yacht club photo op. "You gave him access." Her shoulders drooped, the brave facade finally cracking. "I believed in the product, Adam. I begged you to pitch bigger VCs, to hire a security engineer, to..." "Stop." My vision tunneled. "You believed in the product? You called it our future." She flinched, nodded, eyes glassy but dry. "I believed in it. I just stopped believing you could protect it." Something inside me detonated, silent but absolute. I walked past her, grabbed the external drive from my desk, and left the apartment without my coat. Snow stung my face, yet I welcomed the burn, proof I could still feel something besides betrayal. For 48 hours, I slept on Caleb's futon, writing scripts to trace every fork of our code base, every suspicious IP. He handled coffee, I handled rage-powered focus. At dawn on the third day, we found the smoking gun, a login token tied to Hailey's iCloud, used exactly 21 minutes before each brainwave you build. The timestamps matched her late-night client calls. The security logs were damning enough for civil court. The romance was beyond salvage. I filed a Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown, then pitched Forbes, The Verge, and Reddit's R Startups with a timeline of the heist. By lunchtime, Brainwave US Cam trended on X. Their seed investors froze the next tranche. Logan deleted his LinkedIn banner photo of the yacht. Hailey texted once, a single line that read, "It didn't have to end like this." I left it on read. The legal case moved faster than Boston traffic ever will. Discovery revealed email chains where Logan instructed Hailey to mirror competitor features verbatim. Their counsel tried a scorched earth defense, but screenshots are forever. 2 months later, Hailey sat across from me in federal court, cheeks pale, clutching a generic tote instead of her beloved leather portfolio. She avoided my eyes when the judge cited her under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The verdict crippled Brainwave U's valuation overnight. An emergency board vote removed Logan, and rumors swirled about bankruptcy protection. I should have felt triumphant, yet the victory tasted like cold coffee. The apartment echoed without her sketchbook scattered on the coffee table. Some nights, I still heard the phantom scratch of her stylus and jolted awake reaching for headphones that weren't there. Spring thawed Boston, and with it came an email that looked like spam. Investment inquiry, Elizabeth Davis. Logan's mother. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Over Zoom, Elizabeth, a retired biotech CFO, apologized for her son's recklessness. She'd followed the lawsuit, respected my tenacity, and wanted to back the original vision, my vision. Sometimes, she said, the board needs fresh blood and a moral compass. You seem to have both. 2 weeks later, I closed a $3 million seed round, led by Elizabeth Davis Ventures. Caleb and I reopened hiring recs, this time with a dedicated security team. On launch day, the platform hit #1 on Product Hunt, and my phone buzzed with congrats texts, from classmates, from VCs, even from my old barista. I stared at the screen, half expecting Hailey's name to appear. It never did. Standing on stage at Techstars demo day, floodlights hot on my face, I thought back to the night she drew the first neuron sketch and promised she was proud of me. Maybe, in her own way, she was. Maybe believing in the product without believing in me was her tragedy to carry. Mine was simpler: learn, rebuild, protect. The room erupted in applause as I finished the pitch, but the only sound I registered was the quiet click of my own resolve locking into place. The story she tried to rewrite had found its author again, and this time the ending was entirely mine. The first morning after demo day felt almost narcotic, sunlight knifing through the blinds, inbox ticking like a metronome with partnership requests. Caleb banged on my door at 6, still in last night's hoodie, babbling about AWS credits and a 3-paragraph email from a senior product manager at Google for Education. I should have been dancing, and for a few euphoric beats I was. Then I saw the Reuters push alert. Disgraced angel investor Logan Davis indicted on wire fraud charges. The article quoted sealed source testimony that matched verbatim the chat logs we'd unearthed. It didn't mention Hailey by name, but the phrase, contracted designer, sat there like a landmine. I felt an involuntary tremor ripple down my forearms. Vindication, yes, but also the dread of seeing her life reduced to a bullet point under someone else's downfall. The calendar slid from seed round champagne to heads-down sprint in record time. We hired 12 engineers in 5 weeks, converted the laundry room workstation into a polished dev bullpen, and signed a lease for a co-working suite in Cambridge overlooking the Charles. I started every stand-up with the same mantra: ship secure, ship smart, until the phrase became company Slack emoji. Users poured in from community colleges in Ohio, homeschool networks in Texas, even a pilot program at a charter school in Oakland. Each heat map spike felt like a little square of duct tape sealing the crack Hailey had left. Yet some days I still open Figma files as if a hidden layer might reveal her signature line weight. Late April brought our first board meeting with Elizabeth in person. She arrived in an understated pantsuit and sneakers, the kind of mix only someone comfortable wiring millions could pull off. After the financial slide deck, she asked everyone except me to step out. The door closed. Silence gathered. "Adam," she said, "I need to know how you plan to insulate your leadership from trauma fatigue." The phrasing stunned me more than any valuation figure. She'd read the psychologists' reports on founder burnout and decided to intervene before metrics spiked red. I admitted I was sleeping about 4 hours a night, living on nitro cold brew, and jumping at every unknown caller ID. Her response was a folded slip of paper, the phone number of Dr. Serena Klein, an executive therapist who worked with PTSD-tier founders after massive breaches. "Your code base passes pen tests," Elizabeth said. "Make sure your nervous system does too." Therapy felt like defragmenting a hard drive I'd let run for years. Dr. Klein's office smelled of cedar and old books, nothing like the sterile glass boxes where VCs courted me. In weekly sessions, I diagrammed trust like database relationships. Primary key equals Adam's faith, foreign key equals partner's loyalty, cascade delete on betrayal. She challenged the schema. If Hailey stole from you, does that mean every new connection triggers an SQL injection? It was the first time someone used geek metaphor against me, and it worked. I walked out lighter, though code audits still punctured my dreams. While my inner OS patched itself, the external world cued a fresh challenge. In June, we discovered an unexpected traffic spike from servers in Santa Clara routing through a VPN. The logs showed thousands of automated queries designed to scrape our adaptive learning heuristics, not a clone attempt, more like reconnaissance. Firewall rules throttled the intrusion, but the pattern smelled sophisticated. We traced the domain to a shell corp linked to Orion Capital, one of Logan's former allies. The ashes of Brainwave U were cold, yet someone was blowing on embers. I called a war room meeting. Caleb for infra, Jada for legal, Zoe, our new head of marketing, for comms. Zoe had joined 2 months earlier, a Stanford dropout with the charisma of a Super Bowl halftime and a resume peppered with viral TikTok campaigns. She projected calm even as we outlined worst-case scenarios, data ransom, smear video, class action chasers. At 1 a.m., after we shipped a hot fix and scheduled external audits, Zoe placed 2 protein bars and a bottle of water next to my keyboard. "Founders forget basic I/O," she joked. Her smile reminded me of late-night Waffle House stops during hackathons back in college. Tired, raw, genuine. An unfamiliar warmth threaded through my chest before reflexive caution stamped it down. By July 4th, we'd confirmed Orion's shell company was toast. Our counsel secured a cease and desist bolstered by the Logan Davis indictment. Nobody wanted to touch that radioactive soil. Fireworks cracked over the river while the team watched from the office balcony, cheers mixing with the pop of Modelo cans. Caleb nudged me, eyes glinting. "Dude, breathe. We're good." I tried, inhaled the sulfur-sweet air, and almost believed him. 2 days later, Dr. Klein suggested an exercise. Write a letter you'll never send, to the person who betrayed you. I resisted for 3 sessions, calling it emotional phishing. Finally, I opened a blank Google Doc at midnight. The cursor blinked like a wagging finger. I expected rage, but what poured out was stranger. Gratitude for the early brainstorming nights. Sorrow for the story arcs we'd storyboarded that would never exist, and a single line that scared me with its honesty. If you had trusted me enough to warn me, I might have forgiven the rest. The rawness of that admission fried my circuits. I closed the dock, shoved the laptop away, and slept on the floor beside the desk, heartbeat echoing in the plastic carpet mat. Life, however, refuses to pause updates. In August, MIT invited me to keynote their AI in Education Summit, same auditorium where I'd once dozed through calculus. Weeks beforehand, Zoe and I held slide deck rehearsal marathons. In the after-hours glow, we shared personal scraps, her younger brother's autism diagnosis and how she'd hacked Minecraft mods to teach him fractions. My first laptop, a yard sale ThinkPad missing the ET, salvaged with sticker paper. The stories intertwined until laughter drifted into silence too comfortable for 2 people technically still colleagues. One night she said, "Boundaries suck sometimes," and left before I could reply. The keynote day arrived. Backstage, I paced like a caged thread pool. Someone handed me a bottled water. I didn't notice until I tasted lime. Hailey had always favored lime-flavored seltzer, and a fleeting memory of her voice, Hydrate or dihydrate, babe, stabbed through my composure. I nearly bolted. Instead, I centered on Dr. Klein's mantra, data is not destiny. I stepped on stage to applause that felt like white noise. As I spoke about ethical AI, about safeguarding creativity, I realized the tremor in my hands had stilled. The betrayal had become case study, not open wound. I ended with a line borrowed from my unsent letter. Trust doesn't mean believing people won't fail you. It means believing you'll still build something beautiful when they do. During the Q&A, a student asked how to protect IP without closing off collaboration. The auditorium lights dimmed to bring house to half, and beyond the haze I caught sight of auburn hair and round tortoise-shell frames. My throat closed. Hailey, or a phantom wearing her outline, sat 3 rows back, hands folded in her lap. Fight-or-flight electricity surged, but then she lifted a hand in a small wave, not meant for attention, more like a peace signal. Before I could process, the tech moderator cued the next question and the illusion broke. When the lights went full bright again, the seat was empty. Ghost or real, I couldn't say. That night, Zoe found me alone by the Charles, sneakers dangling over the ledge. She didn't speak until I did. I thought I saw her, I said. Zoe nodded, understanding, without explanation. The river lapped against stone embankments, endless loops of reflection and release. Finally, she placed her phone between us, screen off, camera glass catching distant city glow. Choose, she whispered, almost lost to traffic hum, past debug logs or new commits. I can't architect around haunting. Her vulnerability cut through the fog. I turned to the water, saw our blurred faces merge in the ripples, and understood the code comment Dr. Klein had drilled into me. Legacy true can become legacy false. Some choices compile slowly. I didn't take Zoe's hand that night. I didn't need to. Just knowing it was there, waiting without coercion, was the first time in a year that trust felt less like a firewall and more like an open-source license. Risky, yes, but essential for anything worth building. The next sprint planning began with Caleb announcing user count milestones and Zoe unveiling a student ambassador program across 15 states. I slid into my chair and glanced at the corner of my monitor where the unsent letter still lived in Drive, unnamed. I hovered over the file, then did nothing, leaving it intact, a relic and a reminder, but no longer the master branch of my narrative. The backlog ahead was monumental. International compliance, mobile offline caching, an unexpected STEM grant from the Department of Education. But for the first time since that sticky note on the fridge, the future felt less like a breach to defend and more like a horizon to chase. 2 months rolled by, in a blur of airport Wi-Fi and neon conference badges. We signed our first district-wide contract in Phoenix, then another in Des Moines. My calendar looked like a Tetris board of red blocks, yet I felt lighter with every flight. Like each new boarding pass shoved Hailey's specter a row farther back in coach. Late September found me in a dim hotel lounge in Austin, laptop propped on the bar while I debugged a flaky onboarding flow. The bartender flicked the TV to see NBC just as a headline splashed, DOJ settles with former designer in high-profile IP case. I froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The chyron scrolled Hailey's name alongside a suspended sentence, mandatory restitution, and a 5-year industry ban. The anchor moved on to bank earnings before my pulse did. I texted Caleb the news. He replied, "Past is garbage collected. Merge forward." I laughed so hard the bartender asked if I needed water. That night, alone in a room that smelled of industrial detergent and cedar air freshener, I drafted a press statement that never mentioned her, only reinforced our commitment to transparency. Zoe proofread it remotely, trimming adjectives like she was deadheading roses. When I landed back in Boston, she met me at arrivals, hoodie over business casual, iced matcha in hand. For the CTO who refuses to admit he's CEO, she teased, pressing the condensation-slit cup into my palm. The terminal bustle faded, the gratitude didn't. October ushered in a problem I'd once dreamed of, growth pain. Daily active users doubled after a Washington Post profile of a community college veteran passing calculus thanks to our adaptive loops. Servers strained despite auto-scaling. One afternoon, the dashboard spiked scarlet under concurrency load, threatening a cascading outage. I sprinted across the open office, socks sliding on polished concrete, barking ticket numbers. Panic churned like old memory, code slipping away, history repeating. But this time the team reacted as one organism. Ops rerouted traffic to a cold region, devs patched the bottleneck, Zoe live tweeted status updates so transparent that users replied with digital high fives rather than pitchforks. The crisis resolved in 47 breathless minutes. I collapsed into a beanbag, adrenaline fizzing. Across the room, Zoe flashed a thumbs up. The gesture landed softer than any kiss. In November, Dr. Klein declared me technically out of acute stress. I celebrated by sleeping an entire Saturday, phone face down, no guilt. Sunday, I baked cinnamon rolls from a YouTube tutorial and delivered half the pan to Zoe's apartment, awkward in my flour dust hoodie. She opened the door wearing noise-canceling headphones, hair in a messy braid, editing a promo reel. We ate in silence, broken only by the hiss of icing melting over pastry. When I stood to leave, she caught my sleeve. "You don't have to ghost when you're happy," she said. I answered by kissing her forehead, small, careful, unexpectedly seismic. No fireworks, just the quiet click of a lock finally opening. December brought a different headline: Brainwave U Assets Auction to EdTech Consortium. I skimmed the article, noting that none of the patents sold were truly mine, just derivative scaffolds. Still, I felt a pang at seeing the name retired to liquidation tables. That night, I visited the old apartment for the first time since the breach. A new couple lived there, a grad student and a nurse, string lights twinkling where our whiteboard once hung. I handed them a mislabeled package that had arrived at the office and walked away without looking back, the winter air sharp and clarifying. On New Year's Eve, the team gathered on Caleb's roof deck, space heaters glowing like forged coals. We set up a projector, looping user-recorded thank you videos. A single mom in Milwaukee, a middle school robotics club in North Carolina, an inmate in a California community college pilot finishing his GED. Midnight thundered with citywide fireworks, champagne sprayed, someone queued up Mr. Brightside. In the strobe of smartphone flashes, Zoe slipped her hand into mine, anchor steady amid the noise. I thought of that first haunting line. She believed in the product, she just didn't believe in me, and felt its power drain away like voltage through a grounded wire. January 2nd, first stand-up of the year, I replaced my old mantra. Ship secure stayed, but I added, grow together. Scribbling it across the whiteboard in red Expo. The team cheered. Someone rang the sales gong. Zoe rolled her eyes, but smiled. We dove into backlog grooming, debating rubric weighting and AR-assisted flashcards. At lunch, I caught my reflection in the glass wall. Eyes alert, posture unconsciously open. The person staring back wasn't the guy who once hoarded trust like spare change. He was a builder surrounded by believers, blueprinting futures rather than barricades. That evening, while code deployed and January's snow salted the window panes, I opened the unsent letter one last time. Instead of deleting, I appended a single closing bracket, like finishing a function that had hung compiling for too long. Then I clicked Move to Archive. Not erased, just filed under Lessons Learned. Outside, the city's streetlights rendered the snowfall in halogen gold. Zoe called from across the office, voice warm as servers humming at capacity. Ready to push to production, boss? I hit enter, felt the servers surge, and realized no hook, no betrayal, no trending hashtag would ever define this release cycle. The narrative was mine again. Ours. Forked, merged, optimistically locked against conflict, and endlessly versioned for whatever came next.